So these little guys are actually my Tom Thumb peas, and you can see the little pods on them. They're more of a determinate variety, so they usually set their flowers and then they set all of their pods and they fatten up with peas. You can eat either the outside of this pod, or you can wait and harvest them for the pea itself. For me, there's actually a good amount of peas, but it depends. Sometimes I see 3 or 4, and sometimes there's 6 or 7 in each of these tiny pods. I don't find them as sweet as other peas, honestly, but all of these have already set their pods, so I was a little surprised to see more flowers popping up. So that's interesting. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pick some of these and see how many we get just from these few plants, because this is my first year oh no, I think I might have pulled the plant. This is my first year growing these. Starting to wonder if I should have maybe brought some clippers to clip them off. It's kind of difficult to do this with one hand. So some of these I'm go ahead and getting the seeds, and some of them I'm just kind of picking off. It's late March, so in South Texas pretty soon it's going to get really, really hot, and these peas definitely do well. They're one of the only plants I have that wasn't damaged. Even my larger peas, when a heavy frost came, got damaged. And so these didn't. These actually did really well. This is what I have so far. So it's really not terrible when you start to consider just how small these peas really are. So before these peas finish off, I'm actually probably going to come out here within the next few days and start planting green beans in their place, just bush beans, to take over. That way when these are done, I'll already have beans growing. I really like succession planting. I think it's important to continuously have something growing in your garden. The really cool thing about this pea is that you can use it for so many things, and it's just so tiny. There's still some just popping up, but I planted about 40 something seeds, an entire packet of Tom Thumb peas from Baker's Creek at the same time. So some of them just took a little longer to kind of pop up. Look at those, some of the pea flowers right there. So I'd say only about half of these plants even have pea pods on them right now. That looks about it. So that's what we got from these. Alrighty, so here we have it. These are some of the more undeveloped peas right here. Except for this one looks like it has a couple of peas in it. And here are some of the more developed peas, so you can kind of see them next to each other. I'm not a big fan of shelling these peas because for me there's just not a lot in them. But here you can see. For a tiny pea, it's not bad though. There's 6 peas in that tiny shell. You can just kind of push them off in there and set the pod to the side. These pods are edible too, so I prefer just to eat them whole, but also would like to have some seed stock. so this will definitely help with that. My youngest thinks these peas are the greatest thing on earth. And they really are cool. I'd say they'd be really cool for children's gardens, just for fun borders, for porch patios if you don't have a lot of space. Definitely a good candidate for swimming pools, little kid pools. Look at that. That had 6 peas in it, and these are actually pretty decent size. I'm actually kind of impressed by this one. Those are definitely seeds that I want to grow from, because it's really important when you're choosing your seeds to choose the ones that have the qualities that you want to see in future generations. So if you have a larger pea or a pod where you notice the pea is sweeter in, then those are the plants you want to save peas from. Even seeds and pods from the same plant. One pod may carry a different genetic trait than the other pod. That's why when you're planting seeds and you plant quite a bit of them, you'll see the second generation of those plants still has a lot of variation. And you just kind of pick the seeds that you want and the plants that you want. And over time, that's how you stabilize your varieties. So that's why a lot of people can grow the same exact plants and get totally different results. It really depends. If you're picking during cold weather, you live in a colder climate or a wetter climate, then chances are you're picking from plants or seeds that survive best in that climate. If you're like me and you're from a hotter climate and one minute it's raining and it's a swamp and the next minute you're on a 5-year drought, then you're going to be picking peas that survive those conditions. It's also important to say that sometimes, like us, when we bought this property, we're in the middle of a 5-year drought. And then all of a sudden, for 3 years in a row, we've had some kind of flooding, hurricanes, tropical storms. So I actually had to the plants that worked out the first couple of years here, they didn't work out. Because when I first got here, it was all peppers and things that thrive in the hot, dry environments. And now I have to be careful that my pepper plants don't get sick from too much water right now. So it's just really kind of mapping it out. I think that's why people say wait a whole 5 years before you permanently plant on your garden on your property, if you can, because that gives you an idea of the layout of your property. I know personally when it rains, I stand outside and I watch over time and I see where the rain falls and how it develops. I smushed that poor little pea. That way I know what my property is about, and I can kind of see, okay, well, this is going to have a lot of flooding. So there have been times where I planted a couple of fig plants, and then the water fell, and I realized that the figs were actually drowning. And so I dug them up, and I moved them to a different area of the yard, and they just sprung back to life, no problem. So it's really important to kind of see the layout over time. But I don't discourage you from at least trying. We do a lot of raised bed gardens where we can, just because our soil gets washed away when it finally does rain. So, and these are flat. There's pretty much nothing in them, but I'll open them up just so you can kind of see the immature pods. There it is. That's what they look like when they're not ready. So that's it. That's what we got. It's really not a whole lot at all. out of the big pea pods I get much larger peas, and I get 8 peas in each pod. So that's probably more of the shelling pea. This pea I'd probably just eat the pods and call it a day unless I want to save for seeds. I'm gonna try to go ahead and separate them out. That way all of these much larger peas here can produce seed, or yeah, can produce seed for future generations, and hopefully we can stabilize it so it'll continue to produce these large peas. There's a pretty big difference in pea size there if you look at it. So I definitely say that's the way to go. As for the rest of it, I think I'll just eat them for the outsides. But they are a really cool plant to have, just to say, hey, look at this small variety. It's different, it's fun for kids. So I say give it a try. You never know, you may really enjoy it. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day.